All right, we're here today with one of my oldest friends in the world. This is Tony. What's going on, Tony? How are you?
Not much. How are you?
So Tony calls me up the other day and he's like, hey, you know, are you interested in a geisha? And I was like, what geisha? Who's doing the geisha? And so you found the geisha where?
Costco's website.
Costco's website.
I was browsing for some coffee for work, said geisha, and because you had talked about it in the Thursday night live stream, I'm like, is this what we were talking about? Because it wasn't as, high end and as expensive as what we had talked about.
So how much was it?
$42.50 for 2 pounds, like shipped.
What?
Yeah.
$42.50.
Yep.
42. So if you're not familiar with geisha, geisha is really quite an expensive coffee. So I was just looking online a little while ago, and the cheapest that you could find geisha is $35 for a 10-ounce bag. So what you find normally on the internet is anywhere between $35 to $120 for $125 for maybe like a pound at the most. So it's pretty expensive coffee. So to find geisha that is, and it's from Panama, right?
Yep.
So it's a Panama geisha for $43 for 2 pounds. That's a hell of a deal.
Yeah.
Hell of a deal. Especially when you consider one of my friends in Japan, Taroh Suzuki, this past summer bought the most expensive lot of geisha for over $2,500 a pound. So
how does the cheap geisha live up?
That's what we're going to find out. That's what we're going to find out.
This is the Kirkland Signature Panama Geisha.
Here we are, Kirkland Signature Panama Geisha.
And this, they claim, is a best before September 16th of this year from the Boquete Highlands in Panama.
Well, that's something that I was wondering. So from Boquete is actually the region of Panama where this is grown. So how this all kind of started out was back in 2005 was when geisha really started to come to the forefront in the coffee business. My mentor, John Sanders from Heinz Public Market Coffee, was part of a buying group that was bidding on the Panama geisha at an auction from Finca Esmeralda in this area. And at the time, it was the most expensive coffee ever sold at auction. $21.75. It was like, so, but back then we were like, oh my gosh, that's craziness. Now, $1,500, now $2,500, not a big deal, I guess. Is this I guess it's resealable?
I got some.
This you could pull up.
I got some Spro Coffee resealer.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. Very nice.
From the good old days.
You get that at sprocoffee.com. All right, so we're going to cut that open. So how does that look to you?
Nice, small, fairly uniform looking beans. I don't see a lot of breaks and dust and dregs in there, but I don't really know what I'm looking for.
Well, no, I mean, and this is a coffee, because it has such a high reputation, it shouldn't have those kind of things.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff you're going to find in most coffees from a lot of different roasters, especially some of the roasters that you find at Costco are going to have a lot of those things you're talking about, broken-ins and problematic coffees and defects in the coffee. This one I would expect, because of the brand name, that it should be relatively clean. Actually, it's a lot lighter roasted than I was expecting. Costco, some of the coffees I've seen from Costco tend to be rather darkly roasted, especially from their other manufacturers.
And I was mainly interested in this being a lighter roast because if I was going to use it at home in my Jura, the super automatics like lighter roasts without getting, jammed up. So.
Well, this is the thing. So, like, now there's a whole world of people in the coffee world that are going to look at this and they're like, "Oh, that's darkly roasted." But this is really more of a city plus roast. So it's a good, solid medium roast.
Yeah. And since I like my chocolate-covered espresso beans, I'm chewing one just to see what kind of.
And how does it taste?
It's very good, smooth. Not getting a lot of the cacao notes, which is what I was kind of interested in seeing if they were going to be there. But
typically geisha is not a.
It had some other.
It's not normally a cacao.
No, but it was. There was a citrus, which I'm getting. Yeah, it tastes good.
All right, well, let's brew some up then. We're going to use the Chemex today. Just a real simple Chemex.
With your fancy paper filter?
These are fancy paper filters. Chemex is a very fancy way of brewing coffee. So we've got 48 grams because we're going to do a double batch of brewing today. Water that's pretty hot. Just off the boil. All right, so we're going to pour pretty hard for the first about 200 grams of water. Let that kind of saturate the coffee and follow the bloom, and then we're going to pour hard all the way up to an additional, well, a total of 750 milliliters of water. And we're targeting 4 minutes for the total brew time. Well, one of the things that Geisha is known for is having a very tea-like character.
Okay. Not from just chewing on the bean, but, you know, and I got the tea-like character when I did the Rusty's Hurricane Washed coffee. Because I was surprised, because like I said, normally I'm brewing things a little bit fuller, and it was very tea-like, but just amazing kind of complexity and flavor to it. I was, because we did that Nicaraguan pairing, and I was like, man, this is amazing.
So when you say you're brewing fuller, what does that mean?
Typically what I drink for a daily is an 18 ounce, what's beyond black guy, so it's usually 6 ounces of espresso and then 12 ounces of coffee. And
so 6 ounces of espresso plus 12 ounces of coffee?
Yes.
Oh, that's a lot of coffee.
Yes. We brew a Lavazza. I use Lavazza coffees in my espresso machine, so you get that typical Italian, slightly bitter.
But you're making all of this in the espresso machine?
No, I take the espresso from the espresso machine to my work coffee machine, and since I only have a crappy Keurig, I have pods. That's what I bought this for, was to grind up and do as my work coffee. And I bought a Bolivian from a company called Parisi.
Yeah, out in Kansas.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost there. Let's get that out of there. Allow me to pour for you.
Very, very light coffee nose.
I get a kind of a buttery on the nose.
I was going to say nutty, but yeah.
There's this type of Filipino dessert that we have called sanserval, and it's basically baked meringue with layers of sugared butter and cashew nuts, and this has that kind of aroma. Maybe that buttery kind of nuttiness from that dessert. I'm gonna try it a little bit hot.
Good. Like I said, I have no reference for what I'm supposed to.
There's a fruit, like a melony kind of fruit, that I'm trying to think of what the melon or what the fruit really is.
Like I said, there's that kind of fruitiness to it they had talked about.
Oh, that's quite interesting. Yeah, so I do think there's a tea-like character to the coffee.
Definitely.
It's light, it's delicate, it's...
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Coming from Costco, I was expecting a lot worse. Like, I was really like, oh, how good could it be?
You were expecting the dollar store of coffee?
You're like, well, that's typically what you get. Like, a lot of the stuff that a lot of the stuff you try from Costco is kind of heavily roasted and not terribly great. So this is actually kind of a surprise.
It's very nice.
Huh.
You're right, it's very much a tea-like quality in the drink.
Definitely there's a nuttiness. So a lot of times you get this, like with a lot of the geishas that you're buying from a lot of these other roasters, or especially the highest end stuff, it's very floral.
Right.
Right. It's light, it's tea-like, but it's very floral. This isn't quite as floral. This is not floral.
No.
This is more buttery, nutty.
Yeah, I think that nutty.
There's a melon. There's a melon. I wish I could figure out what kind of melon it really is.
Bergamot, that was what I was, because so they say medium body, delicate acidity, which I think it definitely has, and then they said hints of jasmine, bergamot with a soft flavor of orange blossom, honey, and fruit sweetness.
Maybe honey, maybe more honeydew.
Typically every time I've had like jasmine tea, I get a little more smokiness out of like jasmine tea usually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm guessing the citrus note is the bergamot that they were, because that's...
Actually, this is quite pleasant. It doesn't have the same kind of floral delicateness in other geishas that I've had from other sources, but this is...
It's an enjoyable... Yeah, I mean...
I think it might even make a really enjoyable iced coffee as well.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
All right. So what do you think?
I think it was well worth the the $42. I'm not unhappy about the coffee. It's very, like I said, very light, very delicate, great flavor, very interesting. So
yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, I'm surprised to say that I kind of enjoy it, and I think it's a worthwhile buy. Like,
yeah, definitely.
If you wanted to try geisha and try to get into it and see if you liked it, this is different than a lot of the geishas that I've tried that are very...
But I don't think you'd be disappointed.
No, I don't think you'd be disappointed. Right. I think it's a great way to get into it. It's also at a fantastic price point. It's not heavily roasted. Well, for some of you, it's going to be heavily roasted.
Right.
But for most people, it's not heavily roasted. And yeah, give it a try.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Kudos
Ciao.
to coffee. Ciao.
All right, good.